I never thought a single evening could fracture the very ground beneath my marriage, yet that night carved itself into my memory with brutal clarity. My wife, Marissa, sat opposite me at the dining table, wineglass trembling in her manicured hand. Candlelight danced across her face, softening the sharpness in her jawline, but nothing could blur the bitterness curled upon her lips. "I'm only asking for what's fair," she said, voice low, seductive, almost coaxing. "My sister has nowhere else. Your parents' old house is just sitting there, empty, gathering dust." I leaned back, the chair creaking beneath me, and felt an ache swell inside my chest. That house wasn't merely wood and stone, it held the echoes of my childhood, my father's laughter, my mother's careful footsteps, the smell of Sunday stew. Every inch of that place was memory, heritage, continuity. To surrender it so easily felt like burying them twice. "No," I said simply. The word cut the air like glass. Her eyes flashed, rage smoldering beneath the carefully painted calm. She set her glass down harder than necessary, crimson liquid splashing against the rim. "No? That's your answer?" I nodded, resolute. "I won't sign it away. It's mine, ours, for our family's future, not hers." Then came the crack. Her hand flew before I could prepare, the slap sharp, stinging, echoing louder than her voice ever could. My cheek burned, my pride burned hotter. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped us, and all I heard was the thud of my own pulse. I stared at her, half in disbelief, half in dawning clarity. That wasn't the slap of a desperate wife pleading for her sibling. It was the slap of a woman whose patience had thinned, whose loyalty no longer anchored to me. When she rose from the table, I saw more than anger in her eyes, I saw distance. A distance that had been growing, unseen by me, fertilized by secrets she had carefully watered behind my back. Later that night, after she locked herself in the guest room, I wandered aimlessly around the house. My thoughts kept circling the same question. Why did she push so hard for her sister? What lay beneath that urgency? The truth arrived sooner than I imagined. A week later, while she was at work, or so she claimed, I drove past the very house we had argued over. Curtains drawn, car parked outside that didn't belong to her sister. Curiosity tugged at me like a hook, dragging me toward the door. I shouldn't have walked up, shouldn't have peeked through the gap in the curtain, but I did. Inside I saw her. Marissa. Not her sister. My wife leaned against the staircase banister, lips locked with a man whose face I couldn't immediately place. Their bodies moved with a hunger that stripped away any excuse of misunderstanding. This wasn't comfort, this wasn't grief. This was lust, raw and undeniable. My heart slammed against my ribs. My breath grew ragged. Every vein screamed betrayal, yet my feet stayed rooted, my eyes refusing to look away. I felt like an intruder in my own life, standing outside a play I hadn't auditioned for, watching the woman I loved perform a role I never gave her. I staggered back, the world tilting, pain flooding my veins like venom. In that instant, the slap from a week ago no longer stung. It was the kiss of another man that scorched me far worse. And for the first time, I realized the house was never about her sister. It was about her secret, her desires, her escape that I never thought a single evening could fracture the very ground beneath my marriage, yet that night carved itself into my memory with brutal clarity. My wife, Marissa, sat opposite me at the dining table, wineglass trembling in her manicured hand. Candlelight danced across her face, softening the sharpness in her jawline, but nothing could blur the bitterness curled upon her lips. "I'm only asking for what's fair," she said, voice low, seductive, almost coaxing. "My sister has nowhere else. Your parents' old house is just sitting there, empty, gathering dust." I leaned back, the chair creaking beneath me, and felt an ache swell inside my chest. That house wasn't merely wood and stone, it held the echoes of my childhood, my father's laughter, my mother's careful footsteps, the smell of Sunday stew. Every inch of that place was memory, heritage, continuity. To surrender it so easily felt like burying them twice. "No," I said simply. The word cut the air like glass. Her eyes flashed, rage smoldering beneath the carefully painted calm. She set her glass down harder than necessary, crimson liquid splashing against the rim. No? That's your answer. I nodded, resolute. I won't sign it away. It's mine, ours, for our family's future, not hers. Then came the crack. Her hand flew before I could prepare, the slap sharp, stinging, echoing louder than her voice ever could. My cheek burned, my pride burned hotter. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped us, and all I heard was the thud of my own pulse. I stared at her, half in disbelief, half in dawning clarity. That wasn't the slap of a desperate wife pleading for her sibling, it was the slap of a woman whose patience had thinned, whose loyalty no longer anchored to me. When she rose from the table, I saw more than anger in her eyes, I saw distance. A distance that had been growing, unseen by me, fertilized by secrets she had carefully watered behind my back. Later that night, after she locked herself in the guest room, I wandered aimlessly around the house. My thoughts kept circling the same question: why did she push so hard for her sister? What lay beneath that urgency? The truth arrived sooner than I imagined. A week later, while she was at work, or so she claimed, I drove past the very house we had argued over. Curtains drawn, car parked outside that didn't belong to her sister. Curiosity tugged at me like a hook, dragging me toward the door. I shouldn't have walked up, shouldn't have peeked through the gap in the curtain, but I did. Inside I saw her. Marissa. Not her sister. My wife leaned against the staircase banister, lips locked with a man whose face I couldn't immediately place. Their bodies moved with a hunger that stripped away any excuse of misunderstanding. This wasn't comfort, this wasn't grief. This was lust, raw and undeniable. My heart slammed against my ribs. My breath grew ragged. Every vein screamed betrayal, yet my feet stayed rooted, my eyes refusing to look away. I felt like an intruder in my own life, standing outside a play I hadn't auditioned for, watching the woman I loved perform a role I never gave her. I staggered back, the world tilting, pain flooding my veins like venom. In that instant, the slap from a week ago no longer stung. It was the kiss of another man that scorched me far worse. And for the first time, I realized the house was never about her sister. It was about her secret, her desires, her escape. I couldn't sleep the night after catching that glimpse through the curtain. The image of Marissa, lips pressed against another man, replayed in my mind with merciless clarity. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the hollow rhythm of the clock, wondering how long she had been slipping away from me, step by step, kiss by kiss. By morning, I looked into the mirror and saw a stranger. My eyes carried shadows of suspicion, my mouth twisted with silent rage. When Marissa came into the kitchen, her hair still damp from a shower, she moved gracefully, almost serenely, as though nothing was broken. She kissed me lightly on the cheek, the same cheek she had slapped not long ago, and I felt her lips as poison, sweetly toxic. "I'll be late tonight," she said casually, reaching for her coffee. "My sister needs me." The words coiled around me like chains. Her sister. Always that excuse. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile, pretending to believe. Inside, though, I was already planning. That evening, instead of staying home, I drove again toward the old house. I parked far enough that she wouldn't notice. Hours passed before headlights cut the darkness. Her car. She stepped out, dressed not in work attire but in a black dress hugging her body, the kind she used to wear for me when passion was alive between us. The door opened. He appeared, taller than me, broad shoulders, confident stance. His hand rested naturally on her waist, as though it had been there countless times before. They disappeared inside, laughter drifting through the night air. I should have walked away, should have driven home and confronted her directly. But I stayed, caught in a trance of agony and fascination. Through the window, I saw them again. He pinned her against the wall, and she welcomed him, eyes closed, mouth parted. Their embrace carried a fever I hadn't felt from her in years. Jealousy was a storm inside me, but lust, twisted, dangerous, ignited alongside it. Watching her betray me, I hated her and desired her all at once. I imagined her warmth, the same warmth now shared with him, and my body betrayed me with longing. It was madness, to be both cuckolded and aroused, humiliated yet compelled. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, torn between bursting in or sinking into shadows. Instead, I walked away, my heart hammering, my breath shallow. The night swallowed me whole, yet the fire burning inside refused to dim. Back home, Marissa returned past midnight. She smelled faintly of wine, perfume, and something unmistakably intimate. She smiled faintly, almost mocking, as she slid into bed beside me without a word. I lay still, stiff as stone, pretending to sleep. Her body pressed against mine, warm, familiar, yet carrying traces of him. The next day, I couldn't hold the silence any longer. Over breakfast I asked, "Do you love me?" She paused mid-sip, her eyes darting to mine with a flicker of surprise, then calculation. "Of course I do," she said softly, setting her cup down. But her voice lacked conviction. "Love doesn't hesitate. Love doesn't avert its gaze." "Then why," I whispered, "do you lie about your sister?" Her fork froze above her plate. A shadow crossed her face, fleeting but undeniable. She recovered quickly, shaking her head, laughing lightly. "What are you talking about? You're imagining things." Yet beneath her mask I saw it, the guilt, the fear. She knew I knew. And at that moment, I realized something darker. She wasn't ashamed. She was daring me to confront her, to expose her. She wanted the war. The morning after our tense breakfast, I sat in my car outside work, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened. My mind wasn't on deadlines or meetings. It was on Marissa. Her deflections, her casual lies, her laughter hiding truth. She had wrapped herself in secrecy, and every thread of that fabric suffocated me. I wanted to scream, to rip away her mask and demand the truth. But another part of me, an uglier, weaker part, was addicted to the torment. The mystery, the betrayal, even the sting of humiliation carried a perverse thrill. What kind of man watches his wife surrender to another and still aches for her? I asked myself that question 100 times, yet no answer satisfied. That evening, I didn't follow her. Instead, I waited. When she came home, I confronted her. "Who is he?" I asked as soon as she closed the door. My voice didn't waver, though my chest thundered. Her eyes narrowed, lips curling with dangerous amusement. "Who is who?" I stepped closer. "Don't play. The man you're seeing at my parents' house. The one you kiss like you used to kiss me." For the first time, her mask cracked. Not shame, never shame, but boldness. She tilted her chin, meeting my stare directly. "And if there is someone? What then?" The honesty in her defiance stole my breath. She didn't deny it. She didn't beg forgiveness. She challenged me. Anger surged, but so did desire. I hated that even as her words carved wounds into my pride, the sight of her standing there, eyes blazing, chest rising with quickened breaths, made my body respond. Betrayal and lust intertwined until I couldn't separate one from the other. I grabbed her wrist. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in, her lips brushing my ear. "He gives me things you don't anymore," she whispered, voice sultry, cruel. "Heat, hunger, danger." Her words stabbed, yet my hand tightened around her waist, pulling her against me. Our mouths collided, violent, desperate, not love but possession. Her nails dug into my neck as we kissed, a clash of fury and craving. In that moment I realized something terrifying. Infidelity had awakened a passion in her that I hadn't seen in years, and I was addicted to it, even if it wasn't mine alone. When we broke apart, her smile was wicked. "See," she murmured. "You still want me. But wanting isn't enough. He makes me feel alive." I staggered back, breathing hard. My world tilted between rage and arousal. "Why him?" I demanded. Her answer was a dagger wrapped in silk. "Because you're safe, predictable. He's reckless, untamed. I need both. You'll keep the house. He'll keep my nights. Her shamelessness shattered me, yet it also bound me tighter. I should have thrown her out. Instead, I stood frozen, my silence granting her permission. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling while she showered. I imagined the water cascading over her body, washing away traces of him, though I knew the scent of another man lingered in her pores, in her sighs, in her very skin. My chest ached, but my body stirred, traitorous, yearning for her even as my soul bled. When she slipped beneath the sheets beside me, she pressed herself against my back, arms wrapping around my torso. Her breath tickled my ear. "Don't think too hard," she whispered. "Just feel." I closed my eyes, surrendering to her warmth, knowing full well she was no longer mine alone. And in that surrender, I tasted both paradise and hell. Days bled into nights, nights bled into hollow mornings. I moved through my life like a ghost, pretending to be the husband Marissa still allowed me to be, while knowing she was slipping out of reach each time she visited her sister. Every lie she told was another thread unraveling between us, yet I clung to the fraying rope as though letting go would kill me. One evening, the urge to know overwhelmed me. I followed her again, careful this time, parking farther away, walking quietly along the edge of the property. The curtains glowed faintly with warm light. My breath misted in the cool night air as I crouched near the window, heart hammering in my chest. And then I saw them. She was on the couch, straddling him, hair tumbling over her shoulders, her head tilted back in abandon. His hands gripped her hips, his mouth tracing her throat. The sounds, the moans, the gasps, pierced through the glass, searing themselves into my memory. Every kiss she gave him felt like theft, every touch a robbery of what once belonged only to me. I should have been repulsed. Instead, I couldn't look away. My body betrayed me, pulsing with heat, even as my heart splintered. The humiliation was intoxicating, the voyeurism maddening. I hated her for giving herself to him, yet I desired her more fiercely than ever before. When she cried out his name, something inside me snapped. I stumbled back, tripping over a stone, nearly exposing myself. My pulse roared in my ears. I ran to my car, slamming the door, gasping like a man drowning. Shame and arousal tangled, until I didn't know where one ended and the other began. Back home, I showered until the water turned cold, scrubbing my skin as though her betrayal had stained me physically. But no soap, no water, no prayer could wash away the images burned into my mind. The next morning, she acted normal, too normal. She made pancakes, humming softly, her hair tied in a loose bun. She kissed my forehead as she set the plate down, the same lips that had been on him hours before. I stared at her, torn between slamming the plate against the wall and pulling her into my arms. "Eat," she said sweetly, as though nothing had shifted, as though she wasn't living a double life. I obeyed, chewing mechanically, tasting ash where there should have been syrup. Later that day, unable to bear the silence, I confronted her again. "I saw you," I said flatly. Her fork clattered against the plate. She studied me, her eyes calculating, then relaxed. "So?" The audacity left me breathless. "So? You're my wife." She leaned forward, smirking. "And you're still my husband. That hasn't changed. But he feeds something inside me you no longer touch." Rage exploded in me. "You think I'll keep tolerating this?" Her smirk widened. "You already are." She wasn't wrong. My anger was real, but so was my hunger for her, even poisoned as it was. She knew it, exploited it, wielded it like a weapon. That night, she came to bed late. I lay awake, pretending to sleep. She slipped beneath the sheets, her skin warm, smelling faintly of sweat and cologne that wasn't mine. She pressed against me, lips grazing my shoulder. "You're still here," she whispered. "That's all that matters." And God help me, she was right. I stayed. I began to wonder if madness had taken root inside me. Every time Marissa left, I told myself I wouldn't follow, wouldn't torture myself with another glimpse of her betrayal. And yet, like a moth circling flame, I always returned to that house. I told myself I needed evidence, needed confirmation, needed certainty, but truthfully, I was addicted. Addicted to watching her sin, addicted to feeling my own heart shatter and pulse at once. One night, instead of hiding outside, I dared myself closer. The front door wasn't locked. My hand trembled on the knob, yet I turned it. The creak of the hinges sounded louder than thunder. Inside, shadows swayed across the walls, illuminated by a dim lamp. I heard them before I saw them, her moans, his laughter, the rhythmic sounds of bodies colliding. I stepped farther in, unable to stop myself. My chest heaved, my palms slick. They were in the living room, lost in each other, oblivious. Marissa's back arched, her voice breaking into gasps, his hands gripping her as though she belonged entirely to him. And still, I stood there, watching. She opened her eyes for a brief moment, and saw me. Our gazes locked. For an instant, shock flickered across her face. But then, she didn't stop. She didn't pull away. She held my eyes as she kept moving against him, a silent dare, a twisted exhibition. I froze, rooted to the floor, breath caught in my throat. She wanted me to watch. She wanted me to suffer, to burn, to crave. Her expression wasn't guilt, it was power. When they finished, she leaned against him, whispering something I couldn't hear, then rose. Without shame, without covering herself, she walked toward me. Her body glistened, her eyes smoldered, her smile was triumphant. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, though her tone was anything but scolding. It was teasing, coaxing. I swallowed hard, words lost in my throat. She leaned close, lips brushing my ear. "But now that you are, maybe you should learn why I can't let him go." Before I could respond, she pressed her mouth to mine. Her kiss was fierce, tasting of him, of betrayal, of forbidden fire. I should have shoved her away. Instead, I devoured her, hands roaming, heart pounding. Behind us, he watched, silent, almost amused. The three of us suspended in a moment both vile and intoxicating. My wife, my betrayer, binding me to her even tighter with lust instead of love. When she finally pulled back, her eyes gleamed with wicked delight. "See," she whispered. "You hate me. You love me. You'll never leave me." And God help me, I feared she was right. That night, when she returned home with me, I couldn't sleep. My mind spun in circles. What had I become? A husband? A voyeur? A participant in my own humiliation? Yet beneath the torment lived a dangerous truth. She had awakened something in me I couldn't deny. Watching her with him hurt more than any wound, yet it also ignited a fever no faithful embrace had ever matched. The line between love and destruction blurred until I couldn't see it anymore. And as she curled against me, sleeping peacefully after her night of sin, I realized something chilling. I wasn't just her victim. I was complicit. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds, sharp and unforgiving. I watched Marissa sleep beside me, her breathing steady, her face serene. She looked innocent, almost angelic, yet I knew the truth hidden beneath her calm exterior. She was poison and pleasure in equal measure, and I was addicted to both. The days that followed blurred into one long fever. I stopped pretending I didn't know. I stopped questioning her lies. Instead, I lived in the shadows of her choices, trapped between wanting to reclaim her and wanting to let her destroy me. Each time she returned home, flushed and glowing, I wondered if she wanted me to ask where she'd been. Each time she pressed her lips to mine, I tasted him, and instead of pulling away, I drank deeper. I became her accomplice. One night, she didn't even bother with excuses. She stood before me in the hallway, keys in her hand, her dress clinging to her curve. "I'm going out," she said. "To him?" I asked, voice low. She nodded, unashamed. Then, after a pause, she smirked. "Do you want to come?" The question shattered me. It wasn't an invitation. It was a challenge, a temptation whispered by the devil herself. My chest tightened, my pulse raced. And against all reason, I said yes. The drive was silent, heavy with unspoken desire. When we reached the house, he was already waiting. His smirk mirrored hers, confident, smug, as if he knew he had stolen not just my wife but my dignity. And yet, I walked inside. That night blurred into something unspeakable. I was no longer just a husband watching from the shadows. I was part of it, drawn in, consumed, destroyed and remade. Every boundary I thought I had crumbled, every vow I once swore disintegrated. Lust devoured morality. Betrayal became intimacy. Hatred and desire entwined until they were indistinguishable. When dawn broke, I stood at the window, staring out at the yard where I once played as a child. My parents' house, my sanctuary, now tainted beyond recognition. Behind me, they slept, Marissa curled against him, both of them content, while I stood hollow and awake. I realized then that the slap she gave me that night wasn't just anger over a house. It was the beginning of my unraveling. With one blow, she broke not only the bond between us but the man I thought I was. And yet, I couldn't leave. Even as humiliation scorched me, even as love twisted into something monstrous, I remained tethered to her. Not by vows, not by loyalty, but by a darkness I hadn't known lived inside me until she unleashed it. I walked to the bed, watching her breathe. She stirred, opened her eyes, and smiled faintly. "You're still here," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "Because where else could I go? The world beyond that house no longer belonged to me. My life, my pride, my heart, they all lived in her hands now, bruised but beating. And as I lay beside her, the truth settled like a weight I would carry forever. Love didn't break me. Desire did.